Thank you. Now, before we start the question and answer session, I'd like to invite the New Zealand Minister of Trade, the Honourable Todd McClay, to make a statement on behalf of all ministers. Mr. McClay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We, the ministers representing Australia, Brunei Darussalam, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, the United States and Vietnam are pleased to announce that we have today signed the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. After more than 5 years of negotiation, we are honoured to be able to formalise our collective agreement of TPP, which represents an historic achievement for the Asia-Pacific region. TPP will set a new standard for trade and investment in one of the world's fastest-growing and most dynamic regions. We signatories comprise nearly 40% of global GDP, a market of more than 800 million people and around one-third of world trade. Our goal is to enhance shared prosperity, create jobs and promote sustainable economic development for all of our nations. The signing of the agreement signals an important milestone and the beginning of the next phase for TPP. Our focus now turns to the completion of our respective domestic processes. We recognise the interest shown by a number of other economies throughout the region. This interest affirms our shared objective through TPP of creating a platform that promotes high standards for broader economic integration into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClay. We move now into the question and answer session. I'm going to ask you to please raise your hand to indicate that you wish to ask a question. A microphone will be passed to you. Please wait for that microphone. When I signal it's your turn, please stand, use the microphone and clearly state your name and your media outlet. And when you ask your question, please say which minister it's directed to. So given time is short, I'm going to ask for a maximum of one question per outlet, please, and I will move proceedings along if necessary. So I'd like now to invite questions from the floor. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Patrick Gower from News Hub, New Zealand, and my question is for Mike Froman. Mike Froman, the first question: can the United States ratify this? Will it get through Congress?
Well, thank you for that question. And first, let me just say, tēnā kote. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank the Prime Minister, Minister McClay, and the people of New Zealand for their hospitality. New Zealand, after all, was an original member of the P4. They were present at the creation of this initiative several years ago, and it's only fitting that we're here to sign the final agreement now. I also just want to take a moment to recognize our chief negotiators, our leads, and their teams who have put in tireless efforts over the last several years to get this done. It would not have been done but for their persistence. To answer your question, look, we all have our domestic processes to go through, and ours is clearly laid out in our Trade Promotion Authority legislation of last year. We are working with our stakeholders, we're working with members of Congress, we're working with the leadership of Congress, educating everybody as to what's in the agreement, addressing their questions and concerns. And I'm confident at the end of the day, because of the strong benefits to the U.S. economy, which have been estimated to be over $130 billion a year of GDP growth, as well as more than $350 billion of additional exports, that members of Congress will see the benefits for their constituents and will have the necessary bipartisan support to be approved.
Thank you.
Corin Dan from One News to Mr. Froman once again, if that's okay. Just a quick question, Mr. Froman. What would you say to the protesters and those who oppose this deal, some of those who are outside today, who fear that this will give too much power to US corporations and that they may be able to sue governments like New Zealand? What is your message to them?
Yeah, my message is that this is a historic agreement. We set out several years ago to negotiate together an ambitious, comprehensive, and high standard agreement, and we've done that. This is the product of a diverse set of countries, large and small, developed and developing, Asian, Western Hemispheric countries, and reflects our collective view of the appropriate standards for this region. In terms of the particular issues of investor-state dispute settlement, which you're referring to, I think collectively we have shared a number of the concerns that have been raised about investor-state dispute settlement over the years, and that's why this agreement goes further than any agreement before in terms of raising the standards, adding additional procedural and substantive safeguards, closing loopholes that we've seen in other agreements around the world to ensure that governments can regulate in the public interest and that these kinds of mechanisms are used appropriately. And I think collectively we've reached that conclusion and have advanced the ball towards making sure that ISTS procedures are used appropriately.
Next question. Thank you.
Again for Mr. Froman, but the rest of the panel are also welcome to the ministers to comment on this. One of the big actors, obviously, in the region is China, and China has been watching the TPP. The US has actually made great domestic capital out of the China relationship to gain support for TPP. So how do you actually arrange an accession for China and welcome China into the tent at some stage?
I hope our fellow ministers will also comment on this. I think, just to be clear, we've always said TPP isn't directed against any particular country. It's directed towards setting high standards for the region. And we're engaged, we, the United States, are engaged with China, as I know all of the countries are around the region. It's important to have a constructive economic relationship with them, and we're continuing to work with them, whether it's in our bilateral dialogues or through the negotiation of a high standard bilateral investment treaty to ensure that they are also meeting high standards and that we have a strong rules-based trading system here in the region.
Does any other minister wish to comment on that question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Andrew Robb from Australia. Just to provide our perspective on this, we've got TPP, which is, I think, a transformative agreement of great quality. It is the biggest trade deal in 20 years. It is going to create a great momentum for growth and jobs amongst the 12 countries. And our view is that the corresponding agreement being negotiated, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, together with TPP, provides a potential pathway to an Asia-Pacific free trade area. And that Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership does include China, it does include India, it includes all the ASEAN countries, it includes Japan and South Korea, and New Zealand and Australia. So there's a lot of common membership between TPP and the RCEP. And RCEP has got the prospect of being concluded sometime this year. And I do think the two together can become potentially a very strong basis for all of the region getting together. And that will be a very powerful combination when you remove the noodle bowl of bilateral rules, which have worked effectively as sort of the foundations for TPP, and I think will again work as foundations for RCEP. You make that into one set of seamless trading rules across the region. It reduces the cost and makes it a lot easier to do trade, increases certainty in exporters and importers, and it is really a very strong objective that we're all ultimately heading for.
Any other ministers would like to comment? Sir.
Thank you. I think that for the time being, China is one of the biggest trading partners for Vietnam. The economic investment and trading relationship between China and Vietnam is very important for our economy. I think that there are many ways to strengthen the trading relationship between ASEAN country and China. We have ASEAN-China FTA, and as Minister of Australia mentioned, we are now negotiating on regional comprehensive economic partnership with the participation of China. And if talking about the possibility of China to joining TPP, we share the consensus of TPP member. Thank you.
Yes.
There's a fear that TPP might jeopardize our trade and economic relations with China. For many of our TPP countries, China is probably the biggest, if not, one of the biggest trading partners. This is a concern expressed in my country, Malaysia, and to that, our response has been China is now our biggest trading partner, and we don't see that to change in the next few years. China being a big economy, indeed, China is a very important economic player in the region. So the way we look at it in Malaysia is that TPP will create the momentum for a bigger trade opening up in the region. And of course, as you know, we are open to other countries coming on board. And of course, one point of time, we hope that more countries will be members of TPP. And so the way we look at it, as mentioned by my colleague from Vietnam and also from Australia, we have other regional arrangements. ASEAN, we have a free trade agreement with China, and we are working very hard to conclude the RCEP negotiations by year end, and that's the way forward. The way forward is to continue having very strong economic links with China, and next, of course, all of us welcome the accession of new members. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me just agree with the comments that have been made. Chile has 25 free trade agreements with 64 countries of the world, so that signing TPP is in line with our view of international relations and opening to trade that would bring prosperity, employment, sustainable development. And in that sense, we feel it is compatible to sign the TPP and to advance in the FTAAP, the Free Trade Agreements of the Asia-Pacific region, which precisely in China, at the last APEC meeting, it was agreed to carry on with a study to make it possible. We think the two efforts are perfectly compatible, and as others, China is a main trade partner for Chile, and we look forward to deepening that relationship. And we think that we have to make this convergent rather than to see as divergent. There are various speeds at which we can reach those agreements, and we look forward also to the advancement of the FTAAP in the framework of APEC. Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. Do we have another question?
Kia ora, Renee Kahukura Yosefa from Te Kai News Māori Television. My question is to Minister Macleay. How will this TPP agreement, how will this affect Māori as tangata whenua of Aotearoa and also the Indigenous people of the other 11 countries represented here today?
Thank you for the question, and kia ora, and to my colleagues, thank you for honouring New Zealand with your agreement decision to come here and to sign this such an important agreement for my country and all of ours. Look, that's a very good question. Fundamentally, trade liberalisation leads to greater prosperity, growth and to jobs. Māori people, a Māori business in New Zealand is worth $40 billion a year. Much of that is in the primary sectors, and as that economy grows, increasingly these companies reach out to the rest of the world. TPP as an agreement is the largest trade agreement New Zealand has been involved in. When it's fully in force, 93% of our goods and services will enter tariff-free without restriction into these 11 other countries. So Maori businesses stand to benefit significantly as a result of the liberalisation in this agreement. Most importantly, though, for Maori, one of the clauses within the agreement allows New Zealand to continue to meet a specific obligation we have through a treaty that was signed a very long time ago, and it's something that the government takes very, very seriously. It's something that is negotiated into all of our FTAs, and whilst it isn't directly related to TPP, it reserves the right for the government to meet an obligation that it has, a long-standing obligation that it has. So my advice and views are that TPP, it will do nothing but benefit all New Zealanders. It particularly offers a great opportunity for Māori businesses, and it retains the protection so the government can continue to regulate and pass a law within the bounds of our obligations with our treaty partner.
Thank you, Mr. McLeay. Minister, you'd like to comment?
Yeah, if I may. I'm Christa Freeland. I'm the Canadian Trade Minister. I'm really glad you answered that question. You asked that question. Our First Nations people, our Aboriginal people in Canada, are a very important part of our country as well. And I did want to take the opportunity to thank the Government of New Zealand and the Maori people for the warm welcome that was part of the beginning of the ceremony here. It's a very good example for Canada in including First Nations in the process. For us, we are in a unique position because we were not in government when the TPP was negotiated. And our commitment during the election was to state very firmly that we're a party that believes strongly in free trade and a government that believes strongly in free trade, as my Chilean colleague has just described. And also for Canada, our participation in the Asia-Pacific is very, very important. We also made a very firm commitment during our election to consult widely on the TPP, and we are absolutely committed to keeping that promise. Those consultations in Canada very much will include our Aboriginal communities. They're a very important part of the national discussion, and we're committed to full parliamentary committee study and a full parliamentary debate ahead of any vote on ratification. Est-ce que je peux dire quelques mots en français, seulement deux? Enseignant aujourd'hui, le Canada reste à la table avec les autres pays de PTP et les consultations se poursuivront. La signature de PTP n'est qu'une première étape et ne signifie pas la ratification pour notre gouvernement ni l'entrée en vigueur au Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question. We have one over here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Yoshiyuki Aoki from Japan's Public Broadcast, NHK. Can I ask a question to Mr. McLeay? What was the main topic of the conversation during the ministerial talks this time? And also, how will you deal with the countries that would like to join TPP in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, there were a number of wide-ranging conversations in our ministerial meeting earlier today. Some of that dwelt on exchanging information about the ratification processes that each country will have to go through for TPP to enter into force. Very clearly, the theme that came from that is that, whilst each country has a different process, it's for that individual country to run through and meet the obligations that they have under their own law. For the case of New Zealand, as our Prime Minister said, we'll be tabling the agreement and analysis in Parliament on Tuesday of next week, and that will kick off the next stage of analysis and parliamentary scrutiny as part of our democracy, and it's something that I very much look forward to. We'll use a good most of this year, if not all of this year, to continue to talk to New Zealanders about the significant benefits of TPP, but at the same time to look to talk about and address some of the concerns that they may have. Very clearly, this is one of the highest quality agreements New Zealand has has entered into and offers significant opportunity to all New Zealanders and will create jobs and provide for prosperity into the future. We also had an opportunity to have a very early discussion about other countries that have expressed degrees of interest in TPP and its processes. It's our collective view that other economies are interested in TPP is a vote in confidence in the quality of this agreement, and it shows that many other nations have taken notice of the significant achievement of our negotiators and the countries in reaching agreement and signing here today. We have mandated our chief negotiators to go and do a little bit of work and maybe report back to us at a stage in the future around some of the ways we may consider any interest that is expressed in joining TPP. But first and foremost for us, this next stage is around focusing on domestic procedures for the ratification and entry into force of TPP.
Thank you, Mr. Macleay. Next question. Thank you.
Murray Griffin from Bloomberg BNA's international trade reporter. We've heard from New Zealand and the US on their ratification procedure. I wonder if other ministers would be kind enough to explain briefly how their ratification process will work and when it will commence. Thank you.
Who would like to start? Thank you, sir. Yes, yes.
Basically, for Mexico, as soon as this ceremony is over, the document will be taken through internal procedures and probably will make it to the Senate. It will be voted only on the upper house. It will start the analysis of the document, and probably it will be submitted to commissions in the legislative period starting in September. So we'll get the vote on this agreement, if that's the will of the chamber, before the end of the year.
Thank you. Sir.
Yes, thank you. In case of Vietnam, right after TPP agreement is signed, our government submit to the state president of Vietnam, and the later will submit the agreement to the National Assembly for ratification. In any case, I can assure you that we need less than 2 years period of time to finish and to conclude and to end with the ratification of this agreement. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
In Malaysia, our laws do not require any international treaty to go to Parliament for approval and ratification. Notwithstanding that, in view of the importance of this agreement, it is a very comprehensive agreement, very controversial in Malaysia and, of course, many other countries. We have decided to go to Parliament, and that was done last week. It went through the process of going to the lower house and upper house, and from our point of view, the agreement was overwhelmingly approved by the lower house and the upper house. So, although there's no need for us to go to Parliament, my Prime Minister has decided that for the sake of greater buy-in and to promote better understanding of the agreement, it is important to have a full debate in Parliament, and that was done last week. So probably we're the only country among the 12 which has got this approval and ratification, although our laws do not require us to do so. Having said that, we have challenges in the next few months. We need to amend a few laws, and those laws have got to be approved by the lower house and also the upper house. So that's the process in Malaysia. We have taken the unprecedented step of going to Parliament, although it is not a requirement under our laws, and the purpose was to promote greater debate and discussion, and of course to get a better buy-in from various stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other minister want to give a brief answer? Thank you. Yes.
日本でございます。この審議のスケジュールがどうかということにつきましてはですね、スケジュールは国会の方でお決めをいただくということでありますけれども、政府としては TPP 協定とともに速やかに関連法を国会に提出をしたいと考えております。国会の承認ができるだけ早期に得られるように丁寧な説明に心がけ、各国とともに TPP の協定の早期発効を目指してまいりたいと思います。
Thank you. Any other minister? Yes.
In Australia, like New Zealand, I will table this agreement next week in the Parliament, and that will initiate a treaties process. We've got a committee, a joint standing committee on treaties. It will have public hearings, which will start before the end of this month. When those public hearings are completed, probably in 2 or 3 months' time, there'll be a report from that committee, and then the Parliament will consider any legislative changes. And I would anticipate in the second half of the year that we will be through the ratification process. Thanks.
Thank you. Sir?
For Brunei, I think we're similar to Malaysia in the sense that the cabinet can pass the legislation, and for the signing and the ratification, and then it will be endorsed by the head of state. But because there are a lot of legislations that need to be amended in this particular case, those legislation will take a little bit of time, and then it will have to be endorsed by our Legislative Council. So that's the procedure. Okay.
Canada?
Yeah, so as I mentioned briefly, for us, we made an important campaign commitment to consult fully around the TPP and to have a parliamentary debate ahead of any ratification, and we are going to keep that promise. For us, as for colleagues around the table, after the signing, this opens the door to a very important process of national consultation, of a parliamentary debate, and our parliamentary committees have a lot of independence. But I have asked our Parliamentary Committee on Trade, which is just being stood up now, to undertake a full national study of the TPP and consultation.
Thank you. Minister?
In the case of Chile, it will be submitted to our Congress. I can predict a robust democratic discussion of this treaty, because it has generated a great deal of interest. When will that happen? It's difficult to say, because the legislative has a very full agenda, so that it is difficult to predict when will that occur. But for sure it will be the present year, at some point during the next forthcoming months.
Thank you. Does any other minister want to comment? I'm conscious of time moving on. Yes?
It's been all right. Yes, as you heard, we all have different agendas, different timings that we will have to consult with our Congress. In the case of Peru, we have been informing the Congress for the past 3 years. We've made almost 6 presentations in very different commissions, trying to inform and to trying to break the myth that they had, and there was a lot of misinformation. We will have to finish the process among the executive sector. That means we are 18 sectors within the cabinet. And as soon as we finish that, then obviously, as in the case of Chile, and depending upon the agenda of the Congress, we will submit it, and obviously we will be really ready for them to be answering questions. As we have said in Peru, the debate, the agenda is now, and that we will promote as much as debate as it needs for everyone to be clear that this is a balanced achievement that we all got through many years. This has been the first time that trade has really worried about smaller scale firms. No one had thought about this before, and the TPP has thought of SMEs. There is one chapter dedicated to SMEs and the way they can insert into global value chains. No free trade agreement before has talked about so many different aspects about social policies, about public policies that are really going to improve people's lives. So I have no doubt that this trade agreement is completely different. That's what we all have been saying, that this is a 21st century agreement, that it really touches what is the most important thing for all of us, is that the human being, that to create jobs is not only depending upon the free trade agreements, it depends upon all the stakeholders, that the SME is willing to jump and take the risk. Those free trade agreements are like roads. We build them, but it's up to the free individual, the choices that we make, but we have to be there for them to make that jump. And this is something that we achieved over these 5 years. 3 continents, more than 800 consumers from different multicultural countries, and we'll come here convinced that this is good for our people, that from now on depend on us, and depend on us to convince our Congress that this is the way that we will eradicate poverty, which is the most important thing for all of us.
Thank you, Minister. Yes.
In the case of Singapore, as a result of signing the TPP, we take on several obligations which require us to make amendments to some of our existing law, and we'll take these amendments through Parliament in the course of this year.
Anyone else? Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and we have one over here. Thank you.
Audrey Young, New Zealand Herald. To Mike Froman and anyone else who wants to answer it, when do you think the tariff schedules, particularly the suboptimal ones, will be up for negotiation next? Do you see that they are locked in, or do you think there is a chance of some renegotiation at the point of accession of the next group of countries who want to join?
I think right now the focus is very much on just getting this agreement approved in our various domestic processes. And as Minister Maclay said earlier, we've asked our chief negotiators to do some work on thinking about countries who've expressed interest in joining in the future, but we have not, that question has not been raised, and we've not been discussing that question as of this point.
Would anyone else like to comment on that question? Thank you. Next question.
Sophie O'Shea from Kyoto News. This is for Mr. Froman. Mr. Amari contributed a fair bit to the negotiation process. Do you have anything that you'd like to say to him, even though he's not here?
Well, first of all, we've been very good partners with Japan throughout this process. I think Japan's participation in TPP has been a critical part of its success. We look forward to continuing to work with Prime Minister Abe and his government to see it fully implemented.
Thank you. There's another one over here.
My name is Ha from Vietnam Television. I have 2 questions, one for Japanese Trade Minister and one for Mr. Michael Froman. For the Japanese Trade Minister, could I ask you about Japan is the latest member of TPP negotiator, but you seem to be the fastest one to ratify this important agreement. Why is that, and what are the advantages for you to push the ratification process in Japan? And the second question is for Mr. Froman. What developed countries like the USA could have least developed countries like Vietnam in TPP to narrow the gap in TPP implementation? Thank you, Misters.
Have the first question answered first. Thank you.
日本でございますが、今ちょっと質問の意味がですね、ちょっと十分理解できなかったのですが、最初に批准をするということを聞かれたのでしょうか。
Thank you. And the second part of the question to the other minister?
最後にですね、交渉に参加したということでありますけれども、しかし、これは日本にとってもですね、大変重要な貿易のルール、先ほどからお話が出ている世界4割、そして8億人のですね、この共に反映する、経済圏を生み出すということ、そこにですね、参加をした以上は、やはり積極的に前向きにですね、日本の役割というものを果たしていきたい、そういう意味で、国内でもですね、いろんな意見はあったわけですけれども、今、安倍政権としては、皆さんの理解が得られるように、丁寧に説明をし、理解が得られるように取り組んでいくということでございます。
The second question was to whom?
To me, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Froman.
Well, I'm glad you raised that question, because we're very much working as we speak on a full implementation plan for TPP, and we're consulting with our fellow trading partners about areas where, for example, trade capacity building would be useful to help countries like Vietnam and others meet the obligations that they have taken on under TPP. So we look forward to working with all of our trading partners to ensure that they have the technical assistance necessary to be able to fully implement that. And we think today's signing is an important milestone. Ratification, of course, is absolutely critical, but focusing on implementation and enforcement of the agreement is also very important going forward, and we're putting in significant resources and energy into that as we speak.
Thank you. We have another question here. Can I ask that it's one question? Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Eileen from TV3 Malaysia. Okay, now out of the 12 signatory nations, 6 are developing countries. There were views that these countries would not gain as much benefit as compared to the major economies like the US, New Zealand, Canada, and Australia. Can I please get your views? May I please direct this question to the ministers of Malaysia, Vietnam, as well as Brunei? Thank you.
Thank you. I would put TPP in 3 boxes. First is market access, tariffs. Second would be standards on transparency, on governance. And thirdly would be cooperation on SME development, on development, capacity building, customs. So those are the 3 boxes. But of course, many of us look at the market access point of view. This is indeed very important. And we have looked at some, we have come across a few studies. A few studies have been made by a number of organizations. You know them. There are many views. For example, in my country, Malaysia, there's a study made by a few individuals which claim that the benefits are very, very small indeed, and it's not worth the sacrifice. I mean, a few things we've got to give up. On the other hand, we are aware that there's some other studies which indicated that the major beneficiaries would be Vietnam and Malaysia, among others, and the benefits for some countries are minimal. So the issue is, firstly, these are models, and studies are studies, and models are models. They're based on assumptions. But for us in Malaysia, we've been talking to people in industry, textiles, electrical, electronics, for example, and also palm oil. These are some rubber products. So when you talk to them, these are people in business, and they're looking forward to the benefits coming out from TPP in terms of market access. So you either believe those who have conducted studies based on certain assumptions, those who are on the ground, the practitioners, the entrepreneurs. And we are, as a government, we listen to all sides. Yeah? We have listened to people in industry, and they are very supportive of TPP. And we're mindful that there's been a number of studies. So that's where we are. But we believe that market access is very important for us in Malaysia, especially for those countries with which we haven't got yet an FTA. That will be US, Canada, Mexico, and Peru. That's one. But as I said, TPP has got a few dimensions. One is tariffs. Another is cooperation, collaboration. Another has got to do with standards. And one has got to look in totality. Having said that, of course, market access indeed is one of the reasons why we are part of TPP. Thank you.
Mexico?
Although the question was not addressed to Mexico, as an emerging economy, let me share with you that free trade as a policy is an important tool for growth and development, but without the right domestic policies to really make it sure that it benefits everybody and all the regions, it will not have the same impact. So for the last 20 years, Mexico has been engaged in a very open trade policy. But as you may be aware, we just went through a process of very deep economic reforms that will definitely level the playing field for all sizes of firms or business. And the idea is that you have to do your homework internally so that free trade policies will also drain down to all the regions and to all the people.
Thank you. Vietnam.
Thank you. I think that TPP is a balanced agreement, and for Vietnam, one of the less developed country among the 12 members of TPP. First, we have to thank our partner during the negotiation. They helped Vietnam share with our situation, with understanding, and I think that today we can participate at the signing ceremony is because of one very, very important factor, is that we got the cooperation from our negotiating partner. For Vietnam, through the implementation of TPP, firstly, we can complete our legal system, especially in the field of economy. Second thing, through the implementation of the agreement, we can increase our capacity building. In different way, I can say that we can have more chance to increase the quality of our labor force. The third thing that with the market access content of the agreement, Vietnam can have more chance to export some of our commodity to the remaining 11 country. Let's say textile, garment, agriculture product, and some processing item. Fourthly, with the TPP agreement, we hope that we can have more foreign direct investment coming from our partner, especially for some high-tech project that can help Vietnam industry to develop, especially in supporting industry, in processing industry, and in services industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question? Yes, you'd like to answer?
For Brunei, I think it's quite clear. Our population is 400,000 and TPP is 800 million. I mean, the logic is market access is something that, is clear-cut for us. Second point is our SMEs, 90% of our business people are SMEs, and capacity building is another very important aspect, something that we need very much. And the last point I want to make really is transparency and governance is something that if you want to join the
a club that, and something that we can learn, something that we can learn to compete with the others, then we must be transparent and we must, have a good governance. So those are my 3 points in answer to what you are asking. Thank you.
In the case of Chile as a developing country, we see several benefits of TPP. Let me start out by saying that Chile probably, I think, is the only one of the 12 countries that has a free trade agreement with all the other 11. So that the question was, what is it in it for you, for Chile, if you have free trade agreements with all? Well, number one, access to markets, because we have improved the access that we enjoy in the free trade agreements with the other 11 partners, so that more than 1,600 goods will enjoy access to the markets of the other 11 that we didn't have before, particularly in the agro-industrial sector, which is a strong area of exports for Chile. Second, we all know that free trade agreements is not all about tariffs, because oftentimes non-tariff barriers are an obstacle to make trade agreements a reality. So that addressing, for example, sanitary and phytosanitary barriers to trade, which is in this agreement, makes it very important for us. Third, this is not just about trade in goods, but it's also services and investment. And services is a sector that in Chile's case is growing. Professional services on the part of Chileans is becoming more and more competitive, and this is an area of growth for us. Then global value chains, the fact that since the rules of origin will make it so that the inputs for others will be considered as owned from the country that receives it, and could be elaborated and exported to the rest of the countries, makes it a very attractive element of this treaty for us. And then finally, two other things. My colleague from Peru mentioned it. Small and medium enterprises are a key aspect of this agreement, and there's a whole chapter dedicated to that. And small and medium enterprises create employment, and this is fundamental in this treaty. And finally, there are standards as regards labor and environment that I think are included here, that makes it also another element to underline for us. Thanks.
Any other ministers wish to comment? Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, right. I mean, everyone has said it. In the case of Peru, we're gaining 5 new markets. That means 25% of our non-traditional exports, which are the ones that are related to aggregate value and generating jobs. Then, as we said, the cumulative origin, we also are a country that is very full of SMEs, experts derived from the knowledge that we have in mining, metal mechanics, that we could be engaging in the automotive industry that Mexico has and exports to the U.S., for example. And it's the most important thing, as also my colleague from Chile has said, that the growing of our services economy, it's amazingly. I mean, we plan in the case of Peru for the next 10 years, we're going to triple that in export of services. Related to any of those architectural, digital, we have, those entrepreneurs, and the fourth revolution that has been talked about so much at Davos is that, opportunities for startups, innovation, creativity. This is all that, we have been promoting, and now we have found the way for them to grow, because as the TPP will let them do, they will connect them to bigger scenarios and bigger chains around the world.
Thank you. One more question. We have time for one more. Just at this stage, let me just remind you that there will be the opportunity after this media session for you to have one-on-one interviews with any minister. Thank you.
Kaori Takahashi from the Nikkei. I just want to ask Minister Maclay that what will be the next step? The ministers showed rather optimistic views on the ratification in domestic congresses and parliaments. And what is your ambition as a starting country? Do you have any idea for secretariat or the structure of the TPP?
Thank you. So, look, this is an ambitious agreement, and so New Zealand's view remains optimistic. We want this to enter into force as quickly as it can, so the significant benefits that have been negotiated over many years are delivered for the people of all of our countries. And that's very much where all of the 12 partners to this agreement are focused over the coming period of time. Any significant or substantial discussion around the next steps, around secretariats and so on, is something that we will leave for another day. I think we've all got work to do in our own respective countries to continue to make the case for the significant benefits that TPP delivers.
Thank you, Minister. Well, it's time now for me to bring this media conference to a close. I invite ministers now to leave the stage. Thank you.